terrorized by terrorists to live in a country where they are secure.
Junet.
Mr. Speaker, I can't agree more, Mr. Speaker, with the majority leader that this is a political judgment, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there is no act of parliament that has been subjected to litigation more than the CDF Act, Mr. Speaker. And this is done basically by people who hate members of parliament. They are not doing it for anything else other than hatred that they have for members of parliament, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when I read the judgment of Mr. Speaker of the court, I was shocked, Mr. Speaker, because in 2013, the same act was subjected to litigation, Mr. Speaker, and at that time they were saying that Parliament is dividing the revenue into three: national government revenue, county government revenue, and the CDF, Mr. Speaker. Subsequently, this House did an amendment and did the division of revenue, where the money was divided between the county governments and the national government, and the CDF was put under the national government, Mr. Speaker. There is no difference between a ministry that is getting an allocation from the national budget of the national government than the CDF, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was shocked to see in the judgment of the court that one of the reasons why they are saying this act is unconstitutional is because Parliament passes 7 names of members of the CDF committee, Mr. Speaker. How many names do we pass here? We pass even names of commissions, we pass names of county secretary, we pass names here, PSS, AG, we pass here even commission of what this is called, commission of communication authority, Mr. Speaker. Now, what is the problem of passing names here? The other thing that has shocked me about this judgment, Mr. Speaker, is that they are saying the term of the fund manager is for 5 years, which is equivalent to 5 years of being a member of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. There are fund managers who have been in office for the last 20 years, Mr. Speaker. I don't know where the judges were reading, they were reading, Mr. Speaker, whether they read the submissions of our lawyers, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am shocked because the judges behaved as though they live in another country, Mr. Speaker. Recently, there was a burial in my constituency, and I must say this, of a judge, Mr. Speaker. And the funeral was conducted in a primary school, and those classes were built by CDF, Mr. Speaker. They were not built by county government or built by anybody else. Mr. Speaker, the way the CDF has changed the lives of Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, every person knows in this country, including judges. Do they not go home? Do they not come from villages in this country, Mr. Speaker? And people, I'm asking the judges on the floor of this House, from the floor of this House, Mr. Speaker, in my constituency alone, there are over 3,000 to 4,000 students who benefit from bursary. Children of single mothers, orphans, Mr. Speaker. Where do they expect us to take those children, Mr. Speaker? If CDF is scrapped, the best thing I can do is to put those children in a bus and bring them to the homes of the judges, Mr. Speaker, so they can give them fees, so that those children can go back to school, Mr. Speaker. You can't make the lives of Kenyans miserable by just doing a judgment that does not make any sense, Mr. Speaker, according to me. And we are allowed to critique judgment, Mr. Speaker. They had their say, we must have our say here on this floor, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have been a believer, I have been a supporter of the independence of the judiciary, Mr. Speaker. But now I've come to believe that judiciary now is living in an ivory tower, and they must come down from that ivory tower, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the problem in this country about the 3 arms of government, the other 2 arms of government, the executive and the legislature, are subjected to accountability through elections after every 5 years. Judges are never accountable to anyone. They are accountable to themselves and to JSC, where majority of the members are judges, Mr. Speaker. And you just wait until you reach 70 or 74 years and you retire. You are not accountable to anybody. How do you want to make the lives of Kenyans so miserable by saying that CDF is not doing anything? Mr. Speaker, CDF is unconstitutional. This is a judgment that has been procured by the Council of Governors, Mr. Speaker. And it is out of egos. They don't want any other money. They don't want any other money to come to the constituencies or to the villages, Mr. Speaker. And what is happening in devolution, you know, all of us, and everybody in this country knows. Corruption, pilferage, lethargy, incompetence, The only money, Mr. Speaker, that has touched the lives of Kenyans for the last 20 years is the CDF, Mr. Speaker. And I want to tell the One minute. Mr. Speaker, the name of the fund is NGCDF, National Government, Mr. Speaker. It's not county government, it's not judiciary fund, it's not parliamentary fund, it's not anybody's fund. It's the national government money that is going to the constituencies so that it can build schools, it can build classes, it can build police station, and they're saying there's duplication of functions. We don't do anything outside what the national government is doing. Security and education are not devolved functions, Mr. Speaker. Counties don't do that. Will education improve if today's CDF is abolished? Mr. Speaker, we are going to appeal this judgment, but we will also do a constitutional amendment. We have the powers even to amend the constitution. The judiciary doesn't have. You can declare the act unconstitutional as many times as you like, but we will make sure CDF remains in this country, Mr. Speaker. I submit.
Yes, Kainan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was privileged to be a member of Parliament before CDF came into being. I was privileged also to see Engineer Karue apply his creative mind, Mr. Speaker, and come up with this unique development initiative, Mr. Speaker. And I've seen what CDF has done. I have represented two constituencies, Mr. Speaker. The number of development projects initiated in my former constituency called Wajir West and my current constituency called Eldas, Mr. Speaker, through CDF is more than the combined development initiative since we got independence, Mr. Speaker. In our place, we say CDF is our government. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask myself, the framers of the current constitution, we read Article 1, sovereignty has been equated to representation. Who are these busybodies who want to disregard representation, Mr. Speaker, and rubbish the role of the elected members of Parliament, Mr. Speaker? I have one message for you. We have seen the actions, the inactions, the activities, the inadvertence of these busybodies, whoever they are. Can you stand firm? Can you stand firm as members of Parliament? It's not about the usual complaining, no. Can you stand firm, bring a constitutional amendment so that we entrench the NCDF in the Constitution so that we remove it from the ambit of this gullible and vulnerable busybody, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, for how long shall we deny Kenyans the right to enjoy a piece of the national cake, Mr. Speaker? I'm shocked and dismayed, Mr. Speaker, to see a ruling, and ideally, Mr. Speaker, the role of the three arms of government, Mr. Speaker, is interdependent, is to support each other for the good of the well-being of Kenya, Mr. Speaker. But when you have a targeted approach, Mr. Speaker, to rubbish one arm, then doesn't add value. Mr. Speaker, finally, what I want to say is this. When the members of Parliament are elected here, or the framers of the current constitution, Mr. Speaker, some of the functions have been devolved. After this, you will hear provisional administration is illegal because NCDF only covers education and national security. Are those two functions, Mr. Speaker, county functions? They are not county functions. These are national functions. So, colleagues, if you want to remain relevant, I know it's not the ambit of the members of Parliament because we have delinked NCDF from the member of Parliament. It's completely an independent entity. That still is being pushed to the member of Parliament. I beg you, if you want to remain relevant, if you want your constituents to develop, stand firm, wake up tomorrow, put your heads together, put this entity, entrench it in the Constitution so that there is no room for any busybodies. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Kadambi. Charity Kadambi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Sir, allow me to contribute like my colleagues. In this country, Mr. Speaker, sir, I would wonder which Kenyan has not seen the changes which CDF has really brought in this country. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, my issue is to remind people that what CDF is doing in this country, I doubt if there is another fund which is doing what CDF is doing. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, with the changes, with the poor children we are taking to schools, with the schools we are changing, with the security offices we are constructing, with the administration offices we are doing, Mr. Speaker, sir, I am so much worried that there's people up to now, they have not seen what is happening. And Mr. Speaker, sir, I am contributing because myself being the second-term member of Parliament in Joro constituency. What I have done in my constituency, Your Excellency, Mr. Speaker, sir, for the first term is what has brought me the second term. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I'm standing here to remind our colleagues, let us unite this journey. This is war against development. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is now the high time we united as members of Parliament. We change even if it means changing the Constitution, so that we can make sure that the CDF is well anchored in the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, sir, we have gotten a lot of challenge every time. Whichever time we are doing our works as members of Parliament from single constituencies, actually we are not at peace, because every time we are distracted by so many cases in the courts. And Mr. Speaker, sir, as I'm standing here today, Kenyans are asking, are they safe? Are their children going to go to schools? Are they expecting more constructions of schools when they have seen the challenge which has taken recently in the courts? Mr. Speaker, sir, let me confirm that Kenyans are worried that today there is a threat for the CDF. Therefore, for colleagues, please let us work the 290 constituencies. Let us protect the development. Let us fight for our children. Let us fight for the development for this constituency through CDF. Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you very much. It is for us to unite and say no to whoever is against our development matters. Thank you.
Yes, Chairman CDF. I would have thought you should have been the last to speak on this.
Oh.
Yes. You are the committee chair. Listen to others. You'll speak last. Naisula. Chairman, hold your horses.